All right, good evening. I'm going to call this regular meeting of the school board for September 28th to order. If we could rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we could take attendance.
Ms. Sparkmeyer,
Here.
Mr. Green,
Here.
Mr. Richards,
Here.
Mr. Moses,
Here.
Mr. DeRue,
He is excused.
excused. Mr. Middlestaff,
Here.
Ms. Knox here.
I'll accept a motion to approve the agenda for tonight.
Madam Chairman, I'd like to ask that we put on the agenda redistricting. And the reason I'd like to see that is if we've never had a line item at a board meeting to discuss redistricting. I know in all the bond literature, it's showing indicating that, and it's kind of mixed together with the bond issue, and the bond issue has nothing to do with redistricting directly. The public isn't going to vote on this middle school redistricting. And if it's a great idea, I think we should discuss it and approve it so we can go forward with it. It hasn't been discussed as a board or approved for any middle school redistricting plan. So I'd like to have that as an agenda item just to discuss. And
Okay, we can add a discussion on redistricting. Why don't we add it under letter E prior to the hearing of the public? Is there a motion to accept the agenda as amended?
I so move.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
Motion passes. We will move to the superintendent's update.
Just a handful of items. Bond update, the only update on that is the ballot has been approved by all jurisdictions and absentee ballots will be mailed out tomorrow. Then we had our first luncheon today after a 2-year hiatus at the Shoreliner. Was very well attended. It was good to see. Kids were happy. They were a little nervous because none of them had that experience before. And to have people come in and actually serve them, but that went very well. I mentioned before enrollment that our enrollment, we're at 5,450, right around there. That's 75 over what we had projected. So that's looking good. Just wanted to comment on the incident that we had at Lottie. Just want to commend the entire staff at Lottie. I want to commend Yolanda White for what she did. The Chesterfield police were phenomenal throughout the entire situation in order to help us relocate kids, to communicate with parents and to handle the situation. The crisis team this week has been great. And then I just want to commend Jillian's Coney Island and Trini's, which both provided lunch this week for the staff there in order to just show their support, which is going above and beyond. It's going to take a while before people heal from that. And it was just good to see how everybody pulled together, and parents were very patient as we worked through that on that day. That concludes my update.
Next, we have the review of the ESSER 3 Return to Learn Continuity of Services Plan and Spending Plan.
Good evening, Board. This evening, I'd like to present actually two plans that will have the Return to Learn and Continuity of Services Plan for our ESSER 3 grant. We'll also talk about the spending plan for that ESSER 3 monies as well. To kind of start out and talk about this a little bit, this is a requirement every 6 months or sooner. You have to have a public hearing where you share the contents of the plan and are open to receiving feedback from the community about their input into the plan. You may recall historically, back when ESSER was being awarded, we had several meetings with our stakeholders. We did a survey of our community to try and find out what were the important pieces to spend these ESSER funds on in support of our students. And overwhelmingly, it came back that learning loss was one of the areas that the community and the stakeholders indicated was important for us. Another area was technology. And the final area that was stressed was the emotional supports for the students who had gone through 2 years of COVID. So as we go through this plan, initially with our Return to Learn plan that we had during the COVID year, we did not necessarily have to seek public input. But with the spending plan, we did seek that input earlier. Now that the grant has actually been awarded, we're coming back around to make sure that we comply with the statutory requirement of seeking input every 6 months from our stakeholders and our community. So I'm going to take a little bit. This is posted up on our website and is available for anyone in the community, any of our stakeholders to take a look at. Talks briefly to what we plan to do, and I'm going to have Tim kind of open those up as we go through. So the first one is just kind of an introduction to tell you about the money that we're receiving through ESSER 3 was a part of the American Rescue Plan, the ARP, and was awarded to us. We got, I'll have Tim, if I can have you open that second section. Just to let you know, we got about $2.9 million is what we received in the ESSER 3 funding. So the first couple of the things that it asks you to do in this Return to Learn or, the continuity of school plan is to address how you're going to maintain the health and safety of students and staff. So what we've been doing that since the pandemic, but we're going to continue to do that. In that plan, we talk about where Anchor Bay will follow all of the mandates of state, federal, and local jurisdictions. The CDC, the state, have given us guidelines by which we'll operate, and we'll utilize those guidelines as we go forward. And then you can see there also a link to the Macomb County Health Department, which specifically addresses how staff and students who are either contract or are concerned that they may have been exposed to COVID, how they are to conduct themselves in terms of coming back to school, when they can do that, and so forth. So that is all part of how we're planning to maintain our healthy students and staff within the school while we remain open. Tim, if I can have you move on to the next. Our continuity of services section. In there, what we talk about there is that we're committed to staying open. That is what we believe is best for our students. We know that's what's best for our students. And so that is our commitment. But we also know that as COVID continues, that there's a possibility that it comes back strong, and we have a community. The CDC goes through and they measure, what is the rate of transference and what is the rate of COVID and hospitalization and reported sickness and so forth. And then they kind of take that information and they code whether or not where you are as a county. So we'll continue to abide by that, and then primarily working with the Macomb County Health Department. And then we've got layered mitigation strategies that we will put in place depending on how severe that gets. So Tim, if I can have you open kind of the next two, that'd be great. So it talks about opportunity for public comment and the periodic review of this plan. And so those are kind of things I touched on earlier, that this is an opportunity for the public to comment. We'll have that immediately following. Well, I guess there's been another item inserted, but we will have that at this meeting. And then the periodic review has to happen within 6 months of the awarding of the funds. And that's why we're doing this tonight. And then finally, that last section, like I said, we'll make this available. It is available right now on our website, and we will continue to take public input on our plans going forward. So that is our health mitigation, our health plan for the school district, how we're going to mitigate the spread of COVID and keep our schools safe. If there's any questions on that, I'd take those at this time before I move on to the spending plan.
So if the public wants a copy, if they don't want to access the plan on the website, you'd have a paper copy available on central office?
My contact information is in the plan, so they would be able to contact me, and I'll be sure to provide them with a written copy or a hard copy if they'd like that.
Okay. I just thought maybe it should be noted. Is it noted? When you say plan available to the public, you say contact you.
Yeah, my contact information is in there. So if they want to contact me, I'm able to provide a hard copy of it.
Okay.
But they could come to central office as well.
Yep. Okay.
We'd be able to provide a hard copy. Okay, moving on to the ESSER spending plan. Again, just kind of an introduction. This is part of the American Recovery Plan. That's where we receive the funds. As I said, it's about $2.9 million that we received. The second section there, we talk a little bit about how much we're spending. So if I can have you open that second section there, Tim. The second section is titled Educational Technology. We're spending about 3% of those funds on educational technology, which would include Chromebooks for our students, as well as IXL licensing that we would be using for that as well. That's part of the technology. That's a fairly small amount, only 3%. The next section talks about unfinished learning, or what we would call learning loss. That's where the vast majority of our spending is taking place. I believe it's about 57% of our spending, or about 1.6 million of the money is being spent there. And that will go for things like our literacy specialists at the elementary, tutors. We've added supports for some of our at-risk and special ed students that suffered learning loss. And we are also, again, we'll have additional software and so forth that we're utilizing and paying for out of the grant to support learning loss and address that. Another big piece of that is summer school. We have spent significantly more the last couple of years in summer school, and planning on doing that next year and the year after that, offering a wide variety of opportunities for students to catch up on some of that learning loss. The next section deals with mental well-being and mental health of our students. I believe we're spending, it's too far away for me to see now. It's like, I think 38% or somewhere in that neighborhood is what we're spending. It's a significant amount of money. We've added a number of social workers. We've added a number of counselors, psychologists. So all of those folks we're adding in an attempt to help our students with any of their mental health concerns or needs. So that's where a significant amount of that goes. The next section just kind of recounts what I talked a little bit about earlier, where we have all of the meetings that we had, the things that we've done to garner public inputs, our stakeholders we've met with internally inside the school district, as well as outside, and the feedback that we received from them. And again, that's kind of what we've tailored our spending to is what we received back in terms of input from our community. And that just kind of outlines that piece. At the bottom there, if there's any questions, again, I believe that's where my contact information is. If they need to get in touch with me, I'd be happy to provide greater information or a hard copy of the plan as it stands today. And again, I will just emphasize, we have a public comment coming up shortly after my presentation here. If the public or any of the stakeholders in this room have input as to how those funds should be spent, we would be happy to take that input from them and incorporate that into our plan. Are there any questions from the Board of Education this evening? All right, hearing none, that concludes my presentation.
Thank you. Next, we have our added item, a discussion regarding the potential redistricting that goes along with the bond planning. So-
My comment or my concern is that it's part of the bond issue literature and everything else, that we're reducing transportation and correcting geographical issues, which we've all kind of discussed. It's been in the strategic plan, but it's really not the bond. It's really a separate item. Redistricting is a separate item. And I would think if it's a great idea to do that, and what I'm talking about is moving students within the McCons Elementary area from south to north, and then the Great Oaks to south. And that's what the letter that was sent out the other day, that the board should vote on the redistricting plan. If it's a good idea, we should vote on it. And if the bond passes or it doesn't pass, it's a good idea and reduces transportation costs. So I really think the board should vote. If that's the thing we want to do, we should vote on it and discuss it and vote on it and then move forward, not mingle it in with the bond issue.
I would just like to remind the board that when we were in strategic planning, we told people that we weren't going to do it all of a sudden. The general consensus with all of our stakeholders for those 4 meetings was that we were going to go through, and part of it does impact the bond. We need to have classrooms where it would mean the shifting of about 100 kids from north to south. So we'd have to have classrooms prepared for those. We'd have to know, I wouldn't want to move people more than once if we're doing that. And that's why we had shared with the strategic planning and again, through the whole process, that we would have committees that we'd walk through and talk about that. So it wouldn't be an abrupt decision in order to do that. The other part is that we would offer them input as we went along, and just like with everything. So whether it's designing a school or doing, how are we phasing this in, that we would have the input from all of those stakeholders.
No, I would agree, but then take it out of the bond issue literature. If it's not real, don't put it out there that we're correcting geographical issues, reducing transportation costs, because what you're telling me now we still need to discuss that and make decisions. So why is it on the bond issue literature?
Because it's the bond, like I just mentioned, it directly impacts that, because there are classrooms that we would have to prepare. So if you were to make the decision tonight that we're just going to move, okay? Now, we'd have to, next year, we'd be putting people into those classrooms. We don't know how it's going to. When we explained this to the strategic planning process, and we went through all those meetings and our public comment and our surveys and everything, it was, this is part and parcel of that, and then we're going to have input as we make that decision. So are we making it a wholesale change? Are we doing it phased in? There's more than one way to do that. So that's why it was integral to our strategic plan. It was integral to the bond. It was integral to all of that to kind of set the future of the district. I don't want to go against what we.
I guess I agree, but then don't put it in the bond literature that we're doing it. It's in the bond literature. It says correct geographical areas, reduce transportation costs, but now you're telling me we haven't really figured out what we want to do, or we haven't made a decision on it. If we hadn't made a decision on it, why tell the public it's going to reduce costs when haven't implemented the plan? That's my only point. I agree with you. We need to discuss it. We brought it up, strategic planning, But all the bond literature indicates that when you pass this bond, we're going to fix geographical areas and we're going to reduce transportation costs. The reality, the bond itself, without the redistricting, increases transportation because the students at Lottie Schmidt and one sitting in New Baltimore, they're going to Lottie Schmidt are going to get bus cross town to Aldred. So the bond
That's
issue
incorrect.
increases transportation costs, the redistricting reduces it. So I just want to be clear to the public that we're not reducing transportation costs with the bond. We're reducing transportation costs if we redistrict. That's all my point is.
No, we would do both. And Steve, I really wish that you would have been part of the strategic planning. Because we went over that in depth. We kind of walked through that. We heard from the public and so on. I can't go back now and kind of do that, but that was kind of the conversation.
I understand it's the right thing to do, but I'm just saying it's putting literature out there that says the bond issue reduces transportation costs.
And it will.
Does the literature that's out there, Mr. Middlestat, say that we're making changes at those two schools you mentioned?
Yes, it's in the letter that Mr. Jankowski sent out the other day. It's in the one I got at my house. Yes, that's my concern. It was in the letter. It said students at Great Oaks would be moving and students at McCons. Of course, there's all these disclaimers about you only move once, and I'll agree to all of it, but I'm just saying is the bond issue does not reduce transportation costs. That's my point. And it's in all the literature. And you stated in your letter that I got yesterday in the mail that that's what's going to happen. And we haven't voted on it. It's been discussed in strategic planning. We know it all, and we know it's probably a good thing. And as we all know, redistricting is a touchy thing, and you have to, get the people more involved once we decide what we're going to do and who's going to go where. But the bond issue doesn't reduce transportation costs. That's my point. Redistricting reduces transportation costs. And I agree with all the stuff you said that we need to talk it out and this and that. But I'm just, you got literature out there and you send me a letter in the mail that says we're doing this. And I'm surprised that we're doing that because I had never voted on it. But you sent a letter to the public saying you are. So I don't understand. That's my point. I'll leave it at that.
Okay. Any other comments? We'll move to the hearing of the public. I have two submissions in light of Mr. Rathman's ESSER presentation that can also include community input. If anybody would like to add on for the hearing of the public, I would accept those right now as well. But we'll start with Dominic Vendatelli.
You got it this time. Vendatelli, you gotta shoot the wrist. It really kind of helps the enunciation. I'm serious, it really does. Right there. Okay, now you can hear me. So testing was me. I was able to hear myself, but now you're able to hear me as well. I wanted to talk to you today about standards-based grading. So a little bit of background. My wife's a teacher and she works at a school that has implemented standards-based grading. And she tells me about the effectiveness of this program. So let me back up to talk about traditional grading methods. So that is like, say, for example, you have a math class. You have all these assignments, then a test, and then a letter grade at the end. That's an average of all the grades that you had gotten. And so essentially you start off with an A, and every assignment that you get is giving you the availability to chip down that grade. With standards-based grading, it's more specific. So you have, that's that same math class, and it breaks the math class up in subsections that more definitively describe what the student is learning. And so every student starts off at a 0, and they have to work their way up to basically get a 4, or I believe a 3 or a 4 is the highest letter grade that they have. Instead of having a risk adverse mindset, they more or less have a growth mindset, because mistakes are allowed. They're allowed to retake assignments to get their grade back up there. It's about being proficient in a specific standard, not, being afraid of getting the answer wrong. Mistakes are more allowed. There's studies that have been done to assess teachers' reference of this sort of thing that they've implemented. There's some problems with it, like for example, if it's done isolation, teachers have noted that there's frustration with that. The implementation is difficult because parents are concerned or they're unsure of what's going on. The new grading scale is more difficult. But what this does allow is teachers to provide lesson plans that are more purposeful. So going back again to my wife who's a teacher, she's describing that over the years, teaching the same grade, that she understands that students need more time for, let's say, the metric system. So when she plans lesson plans, she knows that students are able to grasp other concepts easier. So those require less time. But for the metric system, she can see the proficiency scores that correlate to the amount of time that she spent on that specific subject, and that she's allowed to dedicate more time to better fit the needs of the student. That's one benefit. Another benefit is that the students more clearly understand where exactly they are failing. So for example, a student wouldn't say the words like, oh, I'm confused, I don't understand. It would be more specific when they say, I don't understand exactly this. I don't understand how to find the area of a triangle. I understand how to do introductions, because conclusions are great in my letter paragraphs, but I don't know how to start an essay, just for example. Assessment data is improved for that sort of thing. It's better conducive for learning. As I said, teachers, and parents are more able to understand where the student might be lacking. I mean, I could probably go on and on about this sort of stuff. It's a lot of stuff my wife and I talk about at the kitchen table, but that's one thing I would just like to share with the board today. The other thing that I saw, I was on the game on Friday. I noticed that the band was there and they were doing a very good job performing for the football game. I noticed that they had to get off the stands and sort of cut through the crowd, and it was kind of a traffic jam. I was wondering if maybe there's a better way, or maybe we could put a gate right where they would get off, so that way they can go right in the field without having to cut through all those many people. It's not hard to come up with a traffic jam when you have 1,000 students. Is that my time? I can. Okay, thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And I have Brian Powers.
Good evening, board. Brian Powers, 51792 LaShan Drive, Chesterfield, Michigan. There is a 41-page Board of Education bylaws and policies manual on the district's website. And if you ever find yourself really bored and you take the time to read through all 41 pages, you'll see dozens and dozens of policies and rules. But what you will not find among them is any policy with regards to attendance of board members. You'll find some very vague and generic language with regards to an overall expectation of attendance. Under duties and responsibilities of board members, quote, regular attendance at board meetings is necessary to fulfill the obligations of a board member. Under Code of Ethics, item 7, quote, I will prepare for, attend, and actively participate in school board meetings. So there's a few feel-good statements about attendance, but nothing in regards to an acceptable number of absences before it's no longer acceptable. And more importantly, no measure of accountability in terms of disciplinary action. And I think it's time this board look into implementing some attendance policies for board members that actually require regular attendance by board members, because over the last year, it's certainly starting to feel like lack of policy is being taken advantage of. I looked and ran the actual numbers, sat down and ran attendance numbers to make sure it wasn't just me, and it's not just me. I'm going to respect your meeting rules and not name names, but we have a board member who has missed 9 out of the last 22 meetings. That's a 40% absent rate. Another's well over 50%. To be clear, I'm not questioning the reasons why any board members are absent from meetings. I fully understand that life happens, and I assume that if a board member is absent, it's because there's something going on in their life that is more important that they need to attend to, and that's certainly understandable. But at the end of the day, you either have time for this job or you do not. We expect our students, our teachers, our bus drivers, and all of our staff to show up to work or face consequences. They deserve a board that has that same expectation. So I would like to see this board take some steps toward enacting an attendance policy that ensures regular attendance by board members. And I also think it's important to send that message to future members of the community who want to run for one of those seats, that if you're going to put your name on that ballot, you've got the time for the job, because we as the public sometimes only get a chance once every 6 years to hold them accountable. And I think we deserve better rules in place that ensure regular attendance from our board members. Mr. Jankowski, thank you for referencing the strategic planning. Some of us did spend upwards of 40 hours over a 9-month period participating in those. Some of us did have those conversations with all the stakeholders to make sure our voices were heard. Some of us participated in all that,
Your
and
time
some
is
of
up,
us did
sir.
not. Thank you.
And I have one more from Sarah Ledford.
Hi. So I just want to say, kind of to go to attendance, I regularly show up to most meetings. I also took the time to sit through the board training that you all went through, which I think was done via Zoom then. But there are a couple things that I remember hearing in that. One of them was no surprises, like we shouldn't be having surprises. I sit through these meetings and I listen to things that I think to myself, this could have been done in an email, and now it's embarrassing that we're sitting up here discussing it in front of everybody. Like, these are simple things, and it was actually part of the board training that I sat and watched as well. So I would just like to remind everybody of things you learned during board training and maybe try to utilize some of those tactics moving forward, so people that actually show up to meetings are not wasting their time on things that probably should have been handled beforehand. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I don't have any other submissions. We'll move to communications.
No communication.
All right, so we will move to the consent agenda, which tonight consists of the approval of minutes from the August 24th regular meeting and the August 31st special meeting, the personnel report, the financial report, and the bills payable from August of 22.
And Madam Chairman, can we have the minutes removed from the consent agenda to be discussed separately?
Sure.
Thank you.
So we'll start with the personnel report, the financial report, and the bills payable for August of 22. Is there a motion to accept those items?
I'll make a motion.
Support.
Any discussion? Go ahead and call the roll.
Mr. Moses,
Yes.
Mr. Green,
Yes.
Ms. Brookmeyer,
Yes.
Mr. Richards,
Yes.
Mr. Middlestat,
Yes,
Ms. Knox, yes.
Motion passes. So we will consider separately do you want was your request to separate
just have
both
a-
of them, or can we do
just
them
the two
together?
separate. I just had, unfortunately, I wasn't able to attend those meetings, but I had two questions. One was at not the special meeting, but at the end, there was the Mr. Jankowski's compensation, and it was kind of vague on what, it was said 6% over a 3-year, and I'm just, for transparency standpoint, what does that mean in terms of the salary for this year and the next year? Because if you look at the board, the motion, it just says 6% over a 3-year. So is it 6% every year for 3 years, or is it 3 years, 6%, 2% a year? What does that really mean, I guess? I didn't know. And I wasn't at the finance committee, Mr. Richards filled in for me at that time. But I just think it should be clear from a transparency standpoint, what does that really mean?
Sure, well, I can verbally clarify, and then we can
Okay.
obviously modify the minutes and then have them reapproved. But
Okay, yeah, I just need, I wasn't,
Mr. Drew is the chairman, so he's not here. I'll speak on his behalf.
Yep.
It is if I recall, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Jankowski, it is a 6% raise for the next 3 years, provided, there is a caveat, provided that you obtain I'm drawing a blank on the two
Effective or
terms,
highly effective.
highly effective or effective review. And if not, the 6% is not guaranteed. And then there was also a 1% bump, and I believe your
Annuity.
annuity. Thank you. Sorry, I don't have that in front of me.
so it's 6% every year.
Correct.
So this compensation, so the compensation is 165 this year.
With highly effective,
Pardon me?
with a highly effective rating.
No, I understand that. I understand. And I expect that he's going to get it. I don't expect anything less. So that's my assumption. So he's making 165 last year, 6% is around 10,000. So he'll be 175, 185, 195 in 3 years. That's correct, right?
Yeah, I don't have a calculator, but.
Yeah, that's
sounds-
about right.
Mhm.
So
So
does the,
do we need to make a change? So it's
no,
a
I
little
would,
more clear? and
no,
then-
I don't, I think you should just write down what he's currently making and then what he's going to be making. So it's, and so if the public looks at it, they understand what it means.
So can we make the change to the meeting minutes and then just approve that change on this specific?
Yeah, that's what I'm asking.
Issue.
for,
So
Yeah.
we can just
I
bring
just
them
make the
back.
motion with that amendment.
or
No, we don't need to
can
bring
we
them
just-
back. We can just, if Steve wants to make a motion to change the.
Just
verbiage.
put the
Yeah.
actual dollar amount down.
Yeah.
That's all
Okay.
I'm asking.
So
It's more clear to the public that way. I
are
think.
you supporting a motion to approve?
Approve the
both
minutes
August
so
meeting
that
minutes
with the
an
compensation
addition of-
stated with a highly effective rate? Yeah, that's it.
Okay,
Effective or highly effective.
Yeah,
right?
right.
okay. Is there a second?
I would second that.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
On the next minutes, special meetings, the armed security personnel doesn't state what the, I mean, I read in the paper how much was over 200,000 or something, but it doesn't, the motion doesn't state how much it's costing or what the duration of a contract. I mean, generally, when we approve such an amount of money, it's usually bid out, but you also have a contract and a dollar amount. And I don't see a dollar amount in the minutes, although I read it in the newspaper, it's must have been mentioned in the meeting of 200,000 or something, but
Yeah,
I
we
think it
gave
should
it
be clear what the duration of the contract is and what the amount is in the minutes, I guess.
Yeah, we give an approximate because it's based on an hourly rate and how many hours that you use them. So that's why it wasn't.
Yeah, generally you do something like that, you say not to exceed. You put that down as what the terms of the agreement are, not to exceed a certain amount, I guess, or because that's a lot of money just to leave fake. In the minutes, I'm saying,
Mhm.
if that's the agreement, it should be in the minutes, so the public understands what we're paying. That's my point. And that wasn't bid out, right? It was,
Yeah, there was no other companies that provided that same service.
okay.
Mhm.
So there's no competitive bids either. Okay, so if you could add what the terms of the agreement are,
Mhm.
because the board's committing to the thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars in costs, but that's not indicated in the minutes.
We can update that.
Yeah.
And again.
That's
with
probably
the
discussed, I
amendment.
wasn't here that, but looking back at the minutes, I can't see what it was.
Mhm.
So,
Do we want to add that number and then bring that back? That specific set of minutes?
For the estimated number.
Yes.
Yeah, you can just do it again with the amendment. Approve the minutes with that amendment.
I would move to approve the minutes with some detail regarding this personnel costs, like this time personnel costs.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. All right, new business. We have a policy first reading. I am on the policy committee, so I can speak to this. The board policy committee reviewed the seasonal policy updates that we get from our attorneys for the following policies at its September 7th meeting. So the recommendation is that the board, this is a first reading so that we review the policy presented. Specifically, the recommendation was the update to board meetings in which electronic and remote participation can be used. Some of their language they deemed outdated, and the policy committee met. We had some questions on what the attorneys put forth as the recommendation. However, apparently many other districts had that same questioning their recommendation as well. So the attorney's office came back and they offered two options that were a little more clear for the boards. And the recommendation is to go with option A that was presented to us, which in that a board member must be physically present at the meeting to participate in a meeting as a board member, except as otherwise permitted by Open Meetings Act. If a member participates in a board meeting remotely because of absence due to military duty or as the only reasonable accommodation available for a disability that would otherwise prevent the board member from attending the meeting. And then there's a series that everybody has here, a series of conditions that must be met, including but not limited to, giving two-way communication and notifying the board president at least a business day in advance to make arrangements for the general public to be able to contact that board member. Those are just a few of the things, but the recommendation was to go with option A. So this is just a first reading. And that was the policy committee's preference. We got this option A versus option B update after our policy committee meeting, but in talking, I know those of us that were present, option A is basically what we were looking for and recommending for the board that came back. So this would be a first reading of the policy committee for the electronics meetings update with option A going forward. Any board discussion on that? Okay. Next, we have the school age childcare tentative agreement. So administration met with the school age childcare or SAC association pursuant to the board's directive to set starting salaries no less than $15 an hour. Administration was able to come up with an agreement that revised the salaries accordingly. So the recommendation is that the board approve the school age childcare TA as presented. Is there a motion to accept that agreement?
I'll make the motion.
I will second.
Discussion? I'll go ahead and call the roll.
Mr. Moses,
Yes.
Ms. Knox, yes. Ms. Brookmeyer,
Yes.
Mr. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Richards,
Yes.
Mr. Middlestat.
Yes.
Motion passes. Next, we have an award recommendation regarding high school for a tent and stage. So Corey Wiley, our maintenance supervisor, prepared and accepted bids. Mr. LaPerriere, our principal, Mark Prebe, the assistant principal, have reviewed the bids and have made the following recommendations. A 20 by 20 tent for $2,686.07. Staging for $8,091.94. Stage steps for $3,636.82. Funding has been budgeted through the general fund graduate budget for all of the items listed. So the recommendation is that the board award Selena the bid for one tent, staging, and stage steps in the amount totaling $14,434.83 as presented.
For clarification, I believe this is with the intent to start holding graduation exclusively
Yes.
at the football field. Yeah,
Mhm.
so these are items that will need to continue that. That's been very popular, although our hand was forced during COVID. That's kind of what everyone would like to continue.
Is there a motion to accept, to
I will-
award to Selena?
Yeah,
I will make,
oh, Go ahead.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Okay,
Any further discussion? Call the roll.
Ms. Knox, yes. Mr. Moses.
Yes.
Ms. Brookmeyer,
Yes.
Mr. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Richards,
Yes.
Mr. Middlestat.
Yes.
Motion passes. And we have another award recommendation regarding tables and chairs for the high school. So tables and chairs will again be used for student testing in the fall and spring. Chairs also will be used for graduation. Tents can be used throughout the school year to include events, tables such as ROTC penny auction, craft show. So 250 folding tables for $23,575.50. 500 folding chairs for $5,133.66. 21 folding table carts for $9,080 and 8 folding chair carts for $792. So the recommended action is that the board award to Lowe's Equipment the bid for 250 folding plastic tables in the amount of $23,575.50. To award Selena the bid for 21 table storage racks, 500 folding chairs, and 8 folding chair racks in the amount of $15,005.66, totaling $38,581.16 in total as presented. Is there a motion to accept this recommendation bid?
I'll make motion.
Is there a second?
I will second.
So for testing, you would not use the cafeteria tables. We do put all these tables in commons areas that would,
Yeah, it's now with testing, it's all on the same day. And so, yeah, we need 9th, 10th, and 11th graders are all testing. And so that's the tables. Plus, we've been renting them over the last several years
okay.
and for an event. So now we would just have our own that we could use and we could avoid the recurring costs.
And where are we going to store all this stuff at?
We have available space in the high school that we could store it.
And this could be available to any school if they, I know in the past, a long time ago, we used to have, and they'd have to truck them around to each event. So.
Yeah, that's what we would do. And then the folding chairs we'd also use for commencements as well.
And we'll have them clearly marked so they don't get lost.
Yes. Yes.
Thanks.
I had a question on the bid as well. I noticed that for the most part, we're awarding a lot of the bids to Selena. They seem to be the lower cost vendor. But was there a difference in the folding tables that we decided to go with Lowe's with a higher cost bid that you know of offhand, or?
I believe it was the quality of the table.
Fair enough. Thank you.
And just for the public record, that difference is about roughly, I'd say, like $1,600 more to go with Lowe's versus Selena. Okay, go ahead and call the roll for that one.
Mr. Moses,
Yes.
Ms. Knox, yes. Ms. Berkmeyer,
Yes.
Mr. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Richards,
Yes.
Mr. Middlestat.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. And then we have a student reinstatement. A reinstatement committee met on September 26th. The committee agreed on a conditional reinstatement per state law, as the student will be attending in a different district. The recommended action is that the board accept the reinstatement with conditions for student number 11873 as presented.
So moved.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Call the roll.
Mr. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Moses.
Yes.
Ms. Berkmeyer,
Yes.
Mr. Richards,
Yes.
Mr. Middlestat,
Yes.
Ms. Knox, yes.
Motion passes. So we'll move on to board comments, points of pride. Mr. Middlestat, did you want to start us off? Or?
Okay, I don't have any points of pride. I do have discuss some concerns about, not concerns, just information on the bond that Lottie Schmidt, all these things that are going to happen at the buildings, Lottie Schmidt's not going to have any improvements for security or building structure or anything else for 10 years until the new building's done. So I just want to make sure it's clear in the, that people understand in the bond issue that that building, along with Alder students, because that building's not going to get built or completed for 10 years, that while the other elementaries are going to get all these nice things in terms of the buildings, those buildings are not going to get anything until the new building's built, which is 10 years down the road. So just want to make sure that's clear, because it's out there that all these things are going to happen and they're going to be sitting there without any improvements for several years from the bond. That's it.
Mr. Moses?
I really just want to, commend the Lottie Schmidt staff on the way they handled the issue. I know it was a terrible, terrible day, and my prayers go out to that family and everybody in that region. That's really all I have tonight.
Mr. Green?
I'll follow with Mike's comments. The Lottie team did an excellent job in pushing through and shuffling students around and pickup times, and the parents did an excellent job. But I certainly want to commend not only the Lottie staff, but our administrative staff that's usually housed in this building. I heard several, parents, police, lots of people commenting on how organized and how the response was just impressive, not only in the number of people that came from other buildings. We brought a counselor, and our middle school principal was on site just because there was potential that one of his students may have been involved. So I heard just never ending glowing reviews of how it was handled, how it went, the response that the district, even so far as Macomb County prosecutor thanked the Anchor Bay School District multiple times in press conferences that I saw. So Mr. Jankowski, hats off to you, to your team. I know that several of your administrative staff was out there and just did a phenomenal job. But what was more impressive to me was even after going through that, and again, it wasn't on Lottie property. It wasn't truly a school issue, even though it turned into one. I showed up at the homecoming game and saw many of your staff members, many of those same teachers had shifted gears, try to take that weight off of the world, off of them, of what may have happened down the street, and showed up for a staff barbecue that was at the high school and had a good time. We're engaging. I saw many of your staff, including yourself and your wife and many of your staff and their spouses and significant others at the homecoming game. And the homecoming game was pretty awesome. I went to a larger high school. We have big homecoming events, but to have a football being flown in by a parachute, that's just awesome to me. That's stuff you don't see at a high school game. Thanks to our ABEA for assisting and sponsoring that. I know that stuff's not cheap. And just from the band and I've never seen that many cars at our high school. Our front parking lot looked like, our front lawn looked like a parking lot. Cars were in rows. It wasn't just one. There was 200 cars in our front lawn. So you couldn't move through the stands because of the parents that were there, the alumni that were there. I just can't say enough, being in the community for, I guess 19 years now, to be able to go out to that homecoming game and see people, out having a good time. And again, everything was kind of weighing on not only the staff, but the community as to what had happened earlier in the day. Everyone kind of shifted gears and made sure we had fun. Unfortunately, Romeo spoiled our victory, but it was a good game nonetheless, because, we're playing the MAC Red now, and they don't mess around there. They're powerhouses. So again, my compliments to your staff and to your team and yourself. Friday was amazing for me, knowing what everybody had already gone through and that they kind of set that aside and made that homecoming and the crowning of the king and the queen and as a priority. That was pretty awesome to watch. So thank you. And thank you guys, the staff, for sure.
I will echo the sentiments of Mr. Moses and Mr. Green. I was also at the game and I got to talk with Mr. Jankowski for a minute. He was kind of taking a breather over to the side, taking the good with the bad that day. There were multiple other things that were going on, from water main breaks to homecoming parades, just a lot. And I think, as Mr. Green said, with our staff and students and families and everyone coming out, shows the strength and resiliency of our community, and that you do have to take a moment to enjoy the good things, because we don't know when the bad things come. It was truly amazing to watch the parachuter. I had the pleasure of standing next to, I think he was about 7 years old, and I was telling him to look at the sky. He was very excited. So that was really cool. A point of pride that I wanted to mention was our Anchor Bay High School field goal record was broken by 6 yards. Caden Thomas, who is a senior, kicked 45 yards, which is truly amazing. So he's at the top of the leaderboard now. I know for a fact he can break that if he needs to. Hopefully he never needs to. But I've seen video of him. So congratulations to Caden Thomas on that achievement.
A little bit longer this week.
Really?
Just telling
Is
you.
that possible?
Last week or last month was a little bit shorter. I'd like to say congratulations to the Anchor Bay Fishing Club teammates Joey Elliott and Jacob Nickert. They won the 2022 Angler of the Year in Michigan Youth Bass Fishing Association and qualified for the annual High School Fishing World Finals and National Championship in La Crosse, Wisconsin. Anchor Bay is currently adding staff to our before and after school childcare program. If you're interested, please reach out to the central office. I'd like to recognize the Anchor Bay Hosta Club. They were featured on Channel 50 and Channel 62 regarding the Strive for Safer Drive competition win last May. Keep up the great work. I'd like to thank the staff that participated in Professional Development Day as part of the Positivity Project. It was great to hear from the community and read posts on social media about seeing the staff out and about in the community. I'd like to recognize our seniors who painted their parking spaces at the high school. It's a great tradition, some impressive artwork as well. Great job. I'd like to recognize the Key Club volunteers who made blankets for the Humane Society this summer. Any high school student interested in joining Key Club, they meet in S102 after school. The Shoreliner restaurant, as we heard, at the Middle School South is excited to welcome back the public. Today was their first day back open. They'll be announcing their schedule soon. Stay tuned for more information. The Aquatic Center is offering swim lessons from preschool age children and up. They have lessons available during the week and on Saturday. I'd like to thank everyone that participated in the homecoming events, from the parade to the events at the school, and all the parent volunteers. Thank you for the help. Middle School South is looking for an 8th grade boys and 8th grade girls basketball coach. Just over there. We're happy to announce that the Archery Club is back and is free. The season starts October 6th, and they will be meeting at Middle School South. The district is currently looking for a multi-trades helper and a high school afternoon custodian. I'd like to say congratulations to Middle School North's Captain of the Month, Becky Keene. Thank you for always going above and beyond at Middle School North. I'd like to recognize the high school student council students who wrote positive messages on the sidewalks for the first week of school. Thank you for everything that you do. My points of pride this month. My points of pride this month goes out to the 78 amazing link leaders who helped welcome the class of 2026 freshmen to the Anchor Bay High School. There were 39 groups. The day consisted of activities in the gym with the entire class. Then they broke into smaller groups of 8 to 11 students with 2 leaders. The leaders were either juniors or seniors. They did small group activities and gave the freshman tours of the school. It was an inspirational message about making the most of their 4 years at Anchor Bay High School. Awesome job to the link leaders. Thank you.
I will add, I was very proud of our staff and our students and our families of the district handling Friday and, rolling with the changes that we had to continue to do with pickup, whether it be from Lottie's Elementary or flooding in New Baltimore. I also was able to attend the homecoming game. And again, it was a great event. And I think Mr. Jankowski and I spoke today, and then even the number of students present at our homecoming dance was very high. And that was it.
There was 1,350 of our own students, 150 guests, so about 1,500.
So considering the size of our building, I think
Yeah.
that's pretty, it's a lot of attendance and participation. So I'm excited to see, our students getting able to be participating and back in the building and doing these kinds of events and kind of getting back to those sorts of activities. I also got to attend the Shoreliner today. That was actually my first time. I was supposed to go in 2020, and when I was supposed to go then, there was a snow day. So it was canceled. And then before it could get rescheduled, then COVID hit. So it was great to see. And that would be my point of pride today to Chef Reitner and the students who worked at the Shoreliner today and the staff. It was great. The people that came to eat lunch with us all enjoyed themselves and wished that they were able to stay longer, some told me. So it was a great meal. So congratulations. And I know there was a little anxiety, I heard, because a lot of our really any of our students that participated haven't had that opportunity in the last few years to have the Shoreliner open. So It just went great. So it was a wonderful, great day and activity, and we look forward to kind of keeping that going and getting back to our usual routine. And that is what I have. Oh, I'm sorry. No, I had one more. I wanted to touch on some comments that were made regarding Lottie and Naldrit not receiving any updates. Right on our Anchor Bay website, we're able, there's a lot of instructional technology purchase that's going to be happening, technology infrastructure, things, and safety and security items that you can look up right directly on the website. So I want to dispel that notion that those buildings are not going to receive anything for 10 years. That's just incorrect.
Check the bond application.
Excuse me,
Not-
this is not your time to speak, sir. All right, so we will move to legislative update.
Today was supposed to be or it is actually the last day of the legislative calendar before the election. And we weren't expecting much, but then all of a sudden yesterday, turns out there's a supplemental budget bill. It probably won't be passed till later tonight, but right now it's looks like they're resurrecting the student scholarships that used to be part of, we need to get details on this, but it used to be part of the MSTEP. Actually, what was the MEP scholarships that they had before? It sounds like those would be offered it's $250 million. It sounds like it'll end up, and that'll be for students from the graduating class of 2023 and beyond. And then two other things for education. It looks like it's going to end up between $12 and $15 for a literacy project for, again, it sounds like for the Read by Grade 3, and then another similar thing for robotics, and which is good. That should benefit our robotics teams.
And then board committee updates. Policy committee met, as we discussed tonight, went over that the policy update from the attorneys, as you heard. So that was really the only piece that the policy committee did. And then curriculum. Somebody else want to speak for curriculum committee?
The textbook for
The
66,
textbooks. Do you remember?
and then the MiFi survey.
So the curriculum committee, we met, I was also a part of that. We approved textbooks purchases, some of which will be online. And then, we recommended those purchases. And then we also discussed the MiFi survey that the state of Michigan asks the schools to, if they would like to participate in. We went over what that was, what the survey was, and kind of got ourselves accustomed with it, as sometimes there's been some controversy in the public about the contents of this survey. So it was recommended by the committee that, in a future board meeting that we bring some education to the whole board on this survey, and that's where we left it. All right.
I might have a quick finance update too. We did meet, and it was already referenced what we discussed, including the superintendent's contracts. We are meeting again this Friday. And at our last meeting, we decided that we needed to have more regular meetings with everything that's going on in the district in terms of finances and money coming in, money going out, a successful bond. So the finance committee meetings are going to be monthly now. They were more as needed. But we need a regular scheduled meeting so we can stay on top of what's going on in the district in terms of money. So monthly we'll be gathering.
And with that, I will take a motion to adjourn.
I'll move. I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Meeting adjourns at 8:04. Thank you and have a good night.